Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the AI Healthcare Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Reed, and today we are joined by my friend, Aaron Leibtag, who's the co-founder and CEO of Pentavere AI. Aaron is a healthcare AI entrepreneur whose company was recently acquired by Healwell AI. Thank you so much again for your time today, Aaron.
Thanks so much for having me on the podcast, Dylan.
No, it's great for you to be here. And what made you decide that AI healthcare was a career you wanted to pursue?
So when we started Pentavere back in 2017, AI wasn't as top of mind. The impact of AI, how it can help everyday people, wasn't known as it is known today.
Mm-hmm.
Every healthcare entrepreneur that I speak to starts a healthcare company, usually in response to a personal situation, usually a devastating personal situation. And our story is really not that different. Myself and my fellow co-founder spent 15 years in finance, in consumer-facing businesses where data was used to help organizations make money. And my co-founder, Stephen's mother, went into what should have been a routine procedure, and critical life-saving information was missed by her care team because it was buried in a clinical note within the electronic health record. So here's information that was documented, that was already in a system, yet it was missed and she passed away as a result. And we asked ourselves, how is it that all of this data in the electronic health record isn't used to improve health outcomes? So that was why we started Pentavere. AI, natural language processing, just happened to be the tools that we use to solve this problem.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And was it out of negligence, or was it just out of like ignorance why that data was not recovered and taken into consideration when making the best medical decision?
Yeah, not negligence, not ill intent, and
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not committed healthcare workers working hard every day under really tough circumstances to do best with patients.
Mm-hmm.
The risk and the challenge and the problem is so much of our healthcare information and all that important information, what medications, who are we, what are the comorbidities we have, what are the instructions, are in paragraphs after paragraphs, letter after letter across the electronic health record. And folks just don't have time to go through all of this information to know what they need to know at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And this unfortunately happens every day. So, how we can help clinicians is by summarizing, by unlocking that value within the electronic health records so they have this information to deliver the best evidence-based care. And that was, a problem. We thought that there must be tools out there addressing this, that the majority of healthcare information is in the clinical notes within the unstructured data.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our first approach, is let's find tools to help. And there weren't those tools. So we ended up together with, institutions and partners, we built our own.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And from someone who's been in healthcare settings before, like one of the most frustrating things is when you have an appointment, you sit down in that waiting room, and then you have to like fill out all that information on paper. And the question that I really have, that I ask myself, is, don't you guys have all of this information like stored somewhere on a computer? Like, why do I have to keep filling this out every single time I'm here?
So it is, and that you just described the challenge. So number one, you're writing out all that information. Is that information being used at the moment? Is that information already in the electronic health record? It is, but it's not in the drop-down boxes. It's not in the dashboards that electronic health record companies, electronic health record solutions
Mm-hmm.
put in front of patients, because healthcare is complex. We're complex.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that information a doctor needs to read or read again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how and when patients fall through the cracks. And that's really the opportunity where AI and data science can really be a paradigm shift in, optimizing care and getting, better outcomes for patients more efficiently and more preventatively.
So, and you bring up an interesting point. So, in the 90s, when EHRs were really making it mainstream, here specifically in the United States, I'm just curious from kind of your experiences, did people not really understand kind of what the technology was, or was it, people just didn't know how to use it, or kind of what, because obviously technology has changed within the 30 years that when EHRs were first introduced, and, before smartphones, before AI technology, like where did you see kind of was the biggest miss when EHRs were implemented in a healthcare setting?
Yeah, so it's hard to say there was a miss. I'd look at more as it's an evolution. So if you think about healthcare today in the US, in Canada, and Europe, is probably the only industry that still uses the word fax machines.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about that migration of the electronic health record or the health record to an electronic health record, we were literally moving from paper-based to an electronic system. So that was a step in the right direction. The challenge with healthcare in particular is all of that important information, that dynamic between the data between the interactions of a doctor, their patient, their diagnosis, their treatment, and their outcome is captured by clinicians in narrative notes. So when you're speaking with your doctor and they're typing all of that information down. We still correspond in narrative, formats to deliver Dylan the best healthcare. And that works well at the moment, but there's so much information that is missed. So technology didn't exist before AI, nor did people think computers or natural language understanding could actually make sense, read, summarize, organize all of that clinical documentation.
Mm-hmm.
We in 2017 believed it could. And the way we went about proving that is embedding ourselves in hospitals to build trust and build out that capability. Because you have an industry where too many patients fall through the cracks. It's such a cost driver of all of our economies. And over 90% of the data isn't used to make things better at scale.
Wow. No, that's crazy. Like how much, how much data is actually missed that could be beneficial for clinicians to actually do their jobs better.
It's we look at it as one of the most exciting opportunities in the world today. And we believe there are few opportunities that can actually improve the human condition, like being able to unlock all of that data that's in the electronic health record. And that was recently validated for us by being nominated for a Pre-Gallion Award, which is what we've been told is like it's like the Nobel Prize in life sciences, where the bar is this innovation, is this technology able to improve the human condition? And our big bet from the beginning is if we can unlock the knowledge within the electronic health record, it has as much value, if not more value, than the amazing work being done unlocking the value in our biology, in our genome, and how our cells work.
Wow. And kind of what you just said kind of falls into my next question nicely. So specifically the Darwin technology, just reading your website, it's received numerous positive feedback from organizations. What problems have you heard that the Darwin technology has helped them address?
Yeah, the big problem is patients fall through the cracks in our healthcare system. And what that specifically means is they are not receiving treatments, medications, or interventions that they're eligible for, that might be standard of care, that might be the appropriate course of action based on their diagnosis, their comorbidities, their lifestyle, all of that information that clinicians, capture, that they're falling through the cracks. So the largest application is the Darwin platform, which has now been published and validated in over 30 peer-reviewed publications, including journals like JAMA, is able to analyze, organize, categorize, to identify these patients falling through the cracks. Very specific applications is identification of patients for clinical trials, identification of patients for interventions that either lower readmission risk or create sustainability for an institution, generation of high quality real world evidence into very specific patient cohorts around the efficacy, around the outcomes of certain medications for value and reimbursement discussions. And the last really big one is just supporting clinicians, save time, to be able to understand the summary of their patients as added clinical decision support so that they can improve care. All of these applications, we believe, is a result of being able to analyze and identify patients from the totality of the electronic health record, the complexity of the electronic health record, which is clinical documentation and text. And we're best in class at that.
And you bring up an interesting point. So here in the United States during the COVID pandemic, it really showcased that there's a lot of opportunities to fix the healthcare system here. Did you guys in Canada, did you experience a lot of the same hurdles that we were experiencing here in the United States?
We absolutely did. And Dylan, I'm so happy you brought that particular scenario up, because if you look at COVID, it really, in a way that people can understand and is meaningful, drives home the point in our discussion. COVID was a tale of two cities when it comes to the power and the opportunity of AI and data science. On one hand, with the vaccine and the innovation around the vaccine, we were able to demonstrate how AI and data science can discover these new medicines, these new platforms, and deliver a vaccine and a treatment in an incredibly, quick amount of time. And that was a human accomplishment, a massive human accomplishment. On the other hand, we couldn't, from a policy perspective, from an evidence perspective, give the basic direction saying, if you're a woman between the ages of 30 to 45 with hypertension and type 2 diabetes on this medication, your risk factor is X, so stay home. However, if you're a woman between the ages of 20 and 30 who only has hypertension or maybe this type of autoimmune, your risk factor is really low and you should probably, go to work and go on with your normal lives. Yeah. We couldn't give that direction in an evidence-based way to help navigate us through the pandemic more effectively. And the reason we couldn't, because all of that data which is there is buried in the clinical text of the unstructured electronic health record. And that is exactly the problem Darwin is solving. That is exactly the ambition of Pentavere, of Healwell, when we talk about AI and data science for preventative health, is if we could redo COVID, imagine patient risk stratification based on evidence and data to the same bar of which we approved and evaluated the vaccine to help, determine policy on how we can, not spend so much money and be more productive in navigating through.
And you bring up an interesting point, like here in the United States, like the CDC and our health agencies did a terrible job in communicating the signs of COVID and what you need to do in case you're infected with COVID.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go on the record to say they did a horrible job. I think they did the best job with what they had, but that is the problem. If you need to rely on manual chart review, somebody reading through skyscrapers worth of natural histories of patients, the patient electronic health records, how certain patients responded to certain medicines to create that policy and those risk profiles, it is impossible. So they did the best they could do.
Mm-hmm.
What Darwin does,
Mm-hmm.
what we have truly pioneered globally in AI and data science from a Pentavere perspective, not because I say so, but based on over 30 peer-reviewed publications validating both the clinical endpoints and the AI. So it's trusted.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the problem it solves. And we're doing educating, everybody on what is the true value, the unlocked, value within our electronic health records, so we can all live healthier lives.
And you've touched upon this quite nicely in the conversation, but where do you see Pentavere in the future contributing to the greater AI healthcare conversation that we're having about improving patient outcomes, but also at the same time, where would you like Pentavere to go moving forward?
Yeah. So on number one, and this has been our North Star and our approach since Steve and I started the company, is the idea around trust and explainability in the backdrop of everything and everything being AI. And what I specifically mean about that is if we can unlock that from the electronic health record with full auditability, full source document verification where the clinician and that human is always in the loop, then what we do is we come up with a number and several patient identification business models where trust and clinician trust is high, so therefore adoption and scale will be high. Somebody told me, a senior policymaker said, in healthcare, innovation only moves at the speed of trust, and the currency of AI, especially in healthcare, is trust. So the Darwin AI platform being recognized as the most trusted platform to unlock data from the electronic health records to identify patients is the foundational. Then where would we like it to go is across US health systems to identify these patients who should be receiving care but are not. Not because generative AI or ChatGPT says they should, but it's already documented in their electronic health records, summarized, brought to the attention of the right person in that care pathway so that it can be optimized. And there's certain disease areas, whether it's heart failure, whether it's diabetes, whether it's cancer, that you can pull on that will have a tremendous impact on better health outcomes for patients.
And so kind of what you're explaining is kind of the similar health problems that we have here in the United States are very similar, if not the exact same, in Canada.
Not just in Canada and the United States, but around the world. So I had the privilege of attending together with the ministers of health, including the Secretary of Health in the US, a closed door meeting at the OECD, the Organization of Economic Developed Countries, convening their first major discussion around AI challenges within healthcare. And every single minister, every single country still has this issue. 17% of GDP, the majority of patients fall through the cracks, which means preventions that are cheaper, that improve their quality of life aren't done. So, those interventions, especially in an acute setting downstream, is what's bankrupting us. The majority of the data is not used. And we were invited because we were the only commercial AI platform referenced in their report as being able to identify these patients as clinical decision support, to be able to identify these patients for eligibility for clinical trials, and to be able to summarize these patients, to support population health analysis for policy. And every country has this particular issue, and that's what's so exciting.
Wow. No, congratulations. That's very impressive.
Thank you. It was, we've built a wonderful team of clinicians and data scientists, engineers, and business people who have come together with shared purpose and shared vision to solve these really, really hard challenges.
And kind of what you were saying, so being being involved in the policy space, that also kind of bleeds into my next question nicely, last question nicely. So what do you think elected officials or public sector officials need to understand about AI in healthcare and how it can help patients get the treatments they need more safely and efficiently when constructing policy?
Yeah, I think, and you're the policy guru, so I'd love your point of view, or to share with this audience and community
Yeah.
with you. But the first thing I would say is, with AI, you can expect more, and you should expect more in terms of quality data
Mm-hmm.
to patient journeys, the outcomes of those patient journeys, to help inform in a more evidence-based way the policies that you are drafting and voting on. You can trust it more, and it can be verified, it can be of high quality, it can be non-biased and non-political. It is real world data, the real world evidence, which, by the way, the FDA is now accepting,
Mm-hmm.
be able to use to approve drugs and innovations.
Wow.
That's what I would say, is you can expect more for data
Mm-hmm.
as of AI.
Yeah. And you bring up an interesting point. So here in the United States, we have, since, I mean, we're a baby nation in relation to all the other, nations, in the world. But one of the big, I don't, big disagreements, I guess is the best way for me to put it, is the, should this be a state-driven issue, or should this be like a decision that the federal government should make from a policy perspective? And specifically on the AI side, just in the field in particular, the states have been really the ones who have been driving it. But yet again, they're not, from what I've seen, it's not answering kind of the complex topics that you and I have discussed. It's more like around deep fakes and fake voices. And you're not even scratching the surface level of the potential opportunities that this technology can actually do, both understanding the positive, but also understanding the negative ramifications of it too, as well.
Yeah. I can't comment on, state versus federal. It's definitely not my area of expertise. One thing I would say is, AI is such a big topic. It's one that we're passionate about at Pentavere and Healwell. It's one that I'm passionate about, because I think the work that we've done with AI, demonstrating how we can help doctors improve the lives of patients, can also inform and educate people how they can use AI to improve their own lives as an extension of you. And how that gets legislated and thought of is one thing. But in healthcare in particular, and in clinical research, there's always been this idea of ethics and research ethics boards, which essentially say, there's a lot of complicated factors, from privacy, patient consent, legislation, but ethically, this is the right thing to do. So we're going to look at it from an ethical scope, and we're going to approve this research to achieve this very, very specific goal. And I think that's a good model for AI in healthcare, which is done already around, clinical studies, clinical trials, and research on how we can scale AI appropriately and quickly, to help patients and help clinicians in healthcare.
And just out of curiosity, what has been the approach that Ottawa's really taken in addressing AI in healthcare, specifically in Canada?
Yeah, so a lot of good work, often leveraging off the leadership of what's happening with GDPR, the work coming out of the US. It's around ethics, it's around controls, it's around traceability. Canada's complex from a healthcare perspective because, number one, it's a socialized system, so it's a single payer system. Number two, healthcare is funded federally, but delivered provincially. So that makes for a very complicated set of discussions, then again, that is far not in my area of expertise. Um, but what we're doing and how we've deployed across Canada is really with that patient first mindset, then that clinician first mindset, and then that population health first mindset. So if we're helping the patients get better outcomes, and that's driving everything we do, we're making sure compliantly, legislatively, securely, we're all on board. Then we're also helping clinicians do better for patients. And then by doing those things, we're helping from a population health perspective, which brings down costs. We're finding we're getting more traction and more scale in AI being profiled in forms like the OECD than few other AI companies in the world.
Wow.
And I ask the audience listening to this podcast to email or share other examples, not of white papers, but of AI applications in production, identifying patients, improving their outcomes, profiled and communicated through peer-reviewed publications.
Wow. That's quite a claim. But I appreciate the confidence though, Aaron.
There are lots of working on it, right?
Yeah.
And AI has many different applications. There's chatbot AI. There's image analysis. What we do specifically, around large language models and clinical text is understanding the narrative within the electronic health record.
And Aaron, where can people find out more about you as well as Pentavere and the Darwin technology?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. So you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm setting up. Folks have been asking me to set up an Instagram account, so I'll send that to you in this post. You can share that, and then I'm accessible. Reach out, email me. We're passionate about improving outcomes, demonstrating trusted and validated applications of AI and data science to improve healthcare, all anchored around identifying patients from the electronic health record.
Awesome. And be sure to subscribe to the AI Healthcare Podcast on YouTube, as well as also listen to the audio version of this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much again for your time today, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. So, and then thank you for all the work you do.
Much appreciated. I'm just one guy though. So, this is Dylan